I'm going to go through a couple of slides here about the design system, and then I'm just going to dive in to design.va.gov. So the design system will help you create designs that we know are consistent and accessible. These are components and patterns that we've tested and gone through various stages to like bake accessibility into them. So really the design system is your friend because it can save you a lot of time. I'll show you how you can access our components and patterns from Sketch for Teams here in a minute. And it'll help you move across the collaboration cycle, especially because your designs will get flagged if something doesn't match up with a component in the design system or an established pattern. So the design system on design.va.gov is made up of a few main sections. One of them is the content style guide, and I'll kind of go over that at a high level. There are foundational elements like color, typography, fonts, iconography, and then what I consider the meat of the design system, really the component, whoops, didn't mean to go so fast, but the components and patterns. So the VA content style guide, this is the in-house style guide for the language we use on va.gov. And it's a great guide because it's shared across the entire VA administrations and teams, and it helps us speak, create a consistent voice and tone on our digital materials and how we speak to veterans and non-veteran customers. There is a big initiative to use plain language. So the content style guide can help guide you around principles of plain language. And here, if you need help, they're, I think, great about responding to questions you might have in VA-site-wide-content Slack channel. And contributing to the design system. So I might just exit out of this mode so I can skip back and forth between the tabs here, because I really would like to just kind of show you how to do this on design.va.gov. But the design system is always looking for contributions. We consider ourselves a team of more like librarians that are gathering like the best examples of different components and patterns on va.gov and you know, making those the source of truth by documenting them. So we're a small team and we're stretched thin. So if there's something that you think would make a good component or pattern that you don't see in the design system, we really would love for you to contribute and to make a suggestion. And there is a way to do that. I'm just going to skip over to design.va.gov. In the About section, there is an entire subsection here on contributing to the design system. And we've tried to make it, break it out into digestible chunks of information, but it talks about how to suggest an addition or update or a change or a removal. And another thing I just wanted to point out here, since we're on the About page, is there's a section for designers here, and each section will talk about like how to get started with the design system and a brief overview of our design libraries, because there are more than one. And also it'll talk about Sketch for Teams at the VA. So let me just give you kind of a tour here, since we're on design.va.gov. One of the first things you'll want to do is to get access to Sketch for Teams. So Sketch for Teams is essentially the cloud-based solution that Sketch offers. It's basically the desktop app, but There's you know, like a web, like a limited web app experience where you can store your files and share them, and you know, share them with your the developers on your team too. They can view the files and inspect and see the colors and other CSS properties. So in order to get started with Sketch for Teams, you'll want to go into the design channel in Slack. I think is the best place to post, and you can tag Kevin Hoffman and request to be added for Sketch for Teams, and then you'll receive an invitation and accept, and you should be in. And I'll show you Sketch for Teams here in a minute, but I just wanted to go over the design.va.gov quickly. So about a lot of good stuff, you know, how to contribute, how to get started as a designer. There's also, if you want to go back and look at our design principles, they're here. And there's also some really good information on a maturity scale we use. As we get into the components, you'll see how they're tagged with these, you know, color-coded items. And you can click any of those tags within a component page, and it'll take you to this definition list here. But essentially, most of our components are in the green use category. We have some use with caution, which usually means those are new, and they may have some research associated with them, but they may not be widely used across va.gov yet. So that's why we you know, have that caveat of use with caution. And again, it kind of breaks down between the use and use with caution as well. Like especially if something's just been proposed, like again, this might have a use with caution tag to it. If something is deployed and widely used, it's tried and true, that'll be a use best practice. And under don't use, I think right now, mostly the don't use we have are components that have been deprecated and patterns that have been deprecated. And a lot of times things will get deprecated because accessibility is not what it should be. You know, accessibility standards always are evolving, so we try to keep up with them. Anyway, you can come back and revisit this maturity scale. I think it has a lot of good information. Let's see. I'm going to skip over to content. So content style guide. Again, this is, you know, the principles of plain language, our standards for numbers, abbreviations, things like that. This is, you know, just a great section of design.va.gov to, I think, to read over or at least scan to get yourself familiar with the principles of plain language, especially. And it's under here, under content principles, there's a section on plain language. Yeah, so, and then here there's a top 10. So this is really useful. And I also find this error messages part of the content style guide really useful. So you could kind of dig into each category and see, but there's a table with, it talks about like the use case and then the message title and the content, and also the component you would want to use if you're trying to address a particular use case. And these feedback messages, I think, are also really useful, especially when you're dealing with forms. And yeah, again, there's a section on form labels as well. It's big, so you can dig around in it. The foundation section is, you know, as the word describes, the foundational elements of the design system. These are also elements that are traditionally associated with style guides. So our breakpoints, this is useful mostly, I think, for developers, but our color palette is here. And we've recently updated the sketch for the primary design system sketch library with to make sure the colors match what is on design.va.gov. There was a few inconsistencies, but these should all be aligned now. And yeah, icons, the layout, this is where our grid is. So if you have questions about how to align columns on your page, this would be a good page to look at. The layout. Oh yeah, right here, page layouts. Yeah. So just some good examples here. Typography. It lists our heading sizes and body text, things like that. And utilities, this is a lot of stuff that developers will look at around CSS specs mostly, but of course you're welcome to peruse them if you want to get familiar with the different tokens the design system uses. See if there's anything else. Yeah. Now, this is what I consider really the meat of the design system, the components and the patterns. And we also have templates, and there's an overview that explains the difference here. But so if you looked in the left-hand side here, let's make it bigger. You can see at the high level here, the color-coded maturity tag that I was showing you earlier. So if we go into accordion, it aligns with this tag, use best practice. And again, you can click on this and go back to that maturity scale definitions list. At the top here, it'll also have a tag if there's translations available in the coded component. And again, you can see this is use best practice because accordions have been widely used all over va.gov. And so we feel confident about this component. Here in the resources section, you can, if there are any open issues related to accordions, you could click and open GitHub. You'll need to, have the GitHub account too, and to be added to the correct repo if you aren't already. And then if we have research that has accordions tagged in it, maybe they weren't specifically, wasn't specifically research on accordions, but perhaps there was accordions in the user interaction. So you might see research associated with a component. If you click here, and after you're added to Sketch for Teams, you'll be able to open this link in a new window. It might actually be viewable as a public link too. I'm not 100% sure, but all of the components should have links to the sketch assets. So I'm just in read-only mode here, but you can see an example of the design assets. And then most of the components the pages are organized according to examples, usage. Some of them have a code usage section, content considerations, accessibility considerations, and some might have a related section which just cross links to a related component or pattern. And then there's a checklist at the bottom that basically indicates, it's another indicator of how mature the component is, and our documentation too. So something I wanted to point out quickly here is that you can see these embedded examples within the component pages, and they link to Storybook, which is where you can go into the coded component examples and play around with the different sizes, essentially. And that could be really helpful to look at the way, a component renders in the mobile viewport. So I clicked and opened Storybook in a new page. And if you see this Canvas tab here in the upper left, if you click on it, you'll go to another view where you can select the screen size. So this helps give you an idea of what this might look like in a mobile viewport or a tablet, for example. So that's kind of cool. And there's additional documentation. Again, this would be something that's relevant a lot of times to developers, but you could also, go in and just read more about the component here in Storybook. And also another thing is that a lot of times there are more examples in Storybook than there are on the component pages, because we just have a lot of different variations, especially with form components, and it would just make these pages massive. So I really recommend going in to take a look at Storybook as well, to familiarize yourself with the components. And let's see, patterns. So patterns are pretty exciting, I think, because last year, well, at least in the last quarter, we updated and added 8 new patterns. And patterns are, I guess, if thinking about atomic design, this would be another step, like a higher level up. So components are more at the micro interaction level, whereas templates, which we can get to, will make up groupings of components, on a page layout. It's more like a static experience. And patterns can span multiple screens and in the flow. So what we've done here is break the categories out into ask users for or help users to. And this is something that the gov.uk design system does, and other design systems are picking up on this, rather than, just sorting patterns by how to organize data. We really want to think from a user-centered point of view. So we're listing it out by the use case. So a lot of these, well, at the top here, address like form patterns. So again, like contact preferences, sometimes these aren't too fancy, but just an example of how you might want to, or how you should show how to capture contact preferences if that's a feature you're putting in your product or form. This one on how to ask for gender was updated recently. And so, yeah, we're propagating this across a lot of the government, onto the US system as well. We're sharing this pattern with them. Let's see, help users to. This is an example of, which one was this? Collecting, I think, keeping a record of their information after it's submitted. So just an example of when you submit a form, how the user can print the page and save that for their records, and also the print styling. So some neat stuff here in patterns. It's pretty meaty, I think. And templates, there's not a lot now, but we are adding them, especially in forms. So these are, again, just standard page layouts. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. When you're putting a new form on va.gov, this is a great place to look to see, okay, here's how I structure my introduction page, or that's actually how to apply. And here's the introduction page. And there's also confirmation. We're working on a review page example as well. So yeah, I know that's a lot, but there's a lot of good stuff here. And there's also a search box. So if you want to search rather than browse, you can do that on design.va.gov. And I wanted to do a little dive into the Sketch library. So I'm in Sketch for Teams right now. I have drilled down into the design system workspace. And I wanted to say too that we really, really encourage folks to keep their work in Sketch for Teams. Like, just speaking from the design system perspective, it's so helpful for me to be able to go in and just take a look at what other people are doing, like how they're using the design system, our components, patterns, just, when we're looking to document new patterns, a lot of times we, dig into different teams mockups to see if there's something that's been repeatable that we can document. So yeah, have Kevin Hoffman add you to Sketch for Teams, and your team might have a workspace, like a folder here already. If not, you can add a project. Once you're added to Sketch for Teams, you can navigate to the design system, excuse me, design system project. And the VA.gov pattern library is our core library. So this is what you're going to want to add first. And if you hover over this ellipsis menu here, the first link in this dropdown is add library. So if you click it, okay, yeah. I expected it to launch my desktop app. I think it is. I just think it's going really slowly. But this is the library panel in your settings menu. Let me open up my desktop app. Yeah, I just think Sketch is acting funky because I have two kind of large, I have this large file open especially, but I just wanted to show you real quick in settings. There's this libraries tab, and we have several libraries. You're welcome to just peruse through the design system project and add them. I encourage it. One thing I want to make sure that to communicate, this is important, that this automatically download and update libraries is checked, because that way, whenever we release a new version of our component library or any library, you'll automatically inherit the updates. You used to have to look for this really small notification and it would say, library update available, but yeah, keep that box checked and you'll be all good. And I just wanted to show you how you can start working with the design system. So once you've added the VA pattern library, you can go into through the insert menu in Sketch, and I have a bunch of libraries added, but oh yeah, there's the search library. Let's see. So here's the pattern library. I need to add a form element. So, I'd go under form, and real quick, like the way that the components are organized under the pattern library mostly, tries to mirror how they're listed in the components in design.va.gov. Sometimes there's a little bit of difference, but it's similar in that, for example, all the form components are under form and not the top level here. So we're also in the process of inheriting some US WDS v3 styles. So that's the US system, an updated version of which the VA design system was originally forked from. So we're trying to update their, inherit some of their styles and then convert them to web components, which is more of a platform or technology agnostic way of building components that allows you to get the accessibility baked in, and developers can use it with different technology. There's React bindings, so they can use React. But anyway, if you see some components commingling US components with the VA, for now, you can just ignore the US system. We're not going to release those until the developed components are available for use too. So just wanted to give you a heads up in case you see those. So say I wanted to add, let's see, a text input component. So I would just navigate through the many tiers of the symbols menu and, go in and drop in the component. And we also have, sorry, I know this is a lot, so feel free to ping me, in the platform design system channel, probably the best way. But lastly, I just wanted to mention that we have a lot of libraries and template files in here. So there's a wireframe library that has grayscale assets. It doesn't have all of the components by any means, but it's not updated that often. But if you want to make wireframes, it has a few things you can start with. Let's see. The annotations library is one that we really recommend adding because it has, in addition to these anatomy callouts that are resizable that you can use, we have some accessibility tags, and these will help you move through the collaboration cycle. So this is important to call out the content structure, in the design intent or midpoint review meetings in the collab cycle. It'll help you, get just past the accessibility review, right? So calling out how the content is structured here. I don't know if you necessarily need to do it on every page, but at least the, primary pages of your mock-ups. There's also these accessibility blue lines, which these are cool, where you can indicate the tab stop order. So that basically communicates how to the accessibility specialist how you intend the page to be experienced by someone using a screen reader, for example, or a keyboard only user. So so you can use these symbols just like you would the symbols from the pattern library file. And we also have a templates file, and this has a lot of stuff in it. And this is not really a library file. This is more of a file that you download and do, copy paste from. It's not something with a lot of shared symbols or anything. So some of this content may be slightly out of date, but it's great to, just to copy and paste, and helps you get started. And again, not have to start from scratch and every time. And these are also really helpful. These minified components that you can make user flows with. So, in a design intent meeting, for example, in collaboration cycle, they really want to see how the whole experience flows together more so than the individual page details. So using these and connecting them up either in Sketch or a tool like Mural, just allows you to make flows kind of quicker. So anyway, that's about it. Again, I know that's a lot, so feel free to reach out on the Platform Design System Slack channel and ping me, and I'm happy to walk you through any of this. So thanks.